Hey guys, welcome back to the College Predictor, Week 8 college football predictions. And we're going to start off with some shoutouts. Our first shoutout goes to Notre Dame defensive back Xavier Watts, who had an absolutely unbelievable game against their upset win against the USC Trojans. That game was absolutely huge for Notre Dame's season, and he had an incredible defensive performance with 2 interceptions, 61 interception yards, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Xavier Watts had a great game, and he's going to continue to have to play good if Notre Dame wants to make a high bowl game or even the college football playoffs, depending on how other teams do. Our next shout-out is Boise State running back Ashton Jenney, who ran for 212 yards and 3 touchdowns, had a 6.8 yards per carry. However, even though he had a great performance, they lost by 1 to the University of Colorado State on that night game. And our third shout-out goes to Stanford wide receiver Eric Ayomanor. He had an unbelievable second-half performance, especially against the Colorado Buffaloes in their 29-point comeback win on Friday night. He had 13 receptions for 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 22.6 yards a catch. That's incredible for a Stanford wide receiver. All right, let's go to our first game, which is between the two big powerhouses in the Big Ten. 7th-ranked Penn State versus 3rd-ranked Ohio State. Now, this game is going to most likely decide the Big Ten. Michigan's in that conversation as well. But this game is the most important game of the year so far. Both these teams are 6-0, 3-0 in the Big Ten. So one of them is going to lose a game, and one of them is most likely going to get their playoff hopes blown. Both these teams have incredible talent. We'll start with Penn State offense. They have Drew Aller, who's been playing amazing, Nick Singleton, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and Olu Fashuanu, the offensive tackle, who is projected to be first-round pick. Meanwhile, Ohio State's offense has Amik Egbuka, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson, and Kyle McCord has been looking pretty good. So both teams' offenses are really good, but so are both teams' defenses. They both have superstar DNs in Chop Robinson and JT Realmuto. They both have good secondary players in Denzel Burke and Kalen King. They're both talented in every way possible. It's going to be who could get the ball last, who's going to win this game. Last year, Penn State could have won this game at home, but they were bad. They had bad decision-making that game, and Ohio State ended up pulling away. This game's at the Horseshoe. Ohio State's going to be the favorite. In fact, they're a 4.5-point favorite. I like Penn State a lot. If they win this game and beat Michigan, they're going to make the playoffs, guaranteed. It's the same thing for Ohio State. If they win this game and win out, they're making the playoffs. The winner of this game will have the highest odds to make the playoffs. Who will it be? My gut says Ohio State. My heart says Penn State. And I think Penn State can upset them. So Ohio State, 4.5-point favorites. We're going to go Penn State with a huge upset by a last-second field goal. It will be 33-30 Penn State. Let's go to our next game, which is between 2 ranked ACC teams, although not as big as a matchup. Home team, Florida State Seminoles, Tomahawk Chop versus the Duke Blue Devils. Duke has looked really good recently this year. We know that they beat Clemson in their opener, and at the time they were the number 1 team in the ACC. Now they have to face the number 1 team in the ACC currently. Florida State has incredible talent in, let's go, Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman. I believe Johnny Wilson should be back in this game. Jaheim Bell, Jared Verse. This team's just very, very talented in every way possible. Meanwhile, Duke's missing a key piece in this game on the road. That's their starting superstar quarterback, Riley Leonard. So will Duke QB Riley Leonard play at Florida State? Excuse me, I read my notes wrong. I thought the name of the quarterback was Will Duke. Anyways, Duke is not going to have a high chance to win this game against Florida State. mainly because Riley Leonard's not 100% and is most likely not going to play this game. So they're going to need their more quiet players to step up and make some plays. Except, will they be able to do that against Florida State's offense and defense? I'm here to say that they won't. I mean, Grayson Loftus, I believe, should be the starter in this game, but I don't think he's good enough to beat the number 4 team in the country. Simple as that. Florida State, 14.5-point favorite, win this game by 20. Let's go to our next game. We're doing a team that just got absolutely dismantled by Arizona, Washington State, versus a team that just came off the really close loss to Washington, the Oregon Ducks. Oregon's 9th ranked now. Washington State's obviously dropped to unranked after their embarrassing loss to Arizona. This is a very good quarterback matchup. Cameron Ward, Bo Nix. Although Cameron Ward's already here for Washington State. Oregon, you hear Troy Franklin and Bucky Irving. I think that's what Oregon State has more than Washington State, a run game. I mean, their running back's incredible. Like I said, Bucky Irving, he had a good game, really good game against Washington. It still wasn't enough, though. Troy Franklin had a good game against Washington as well, though he scored 1 touchdown. I expect him to score multiple touchdowns in this game, and I think that's the reason that Oregon's a 20-point favorite. Their offense is super good. Meanwhile, Washington State's offense hasn't been clicking the last couple weeks. So Oregon's going to come off hot. I think Washington State will battle the first half, but since this game's in Eugene, Oregon's going to pull away in the second half. We're going to go with Oregon as a 20-point favorite. We'll win this game by 23 points. Let's go to our next game between an epic rematch of last year's game where, as you recall, a field goal post was taken down. Tennessee, 17th ranked Tennessee versus 11th ranked Alabama. I feel like last year both these teams were incredibly hyped up and they lived up to expectations. This year they're both really good teams, but I feel like they've both been quiet. I feel like ever since Alabama lost to Texas, they haven't been very, very known. We could say that. Meanwhile, Tennessee, they're having a very good season. So far, their one loss was to Florida, and it was closer, but the score doesn't make the score doesn't make the game accurate. This game's going to be huge. I believe that since it's in Alabama, Tennessee's not going to have the higher chance, especially since they don't have the one receiver that wrecked the game against Alabama, who had 5 touchdowns last year. Jalen Hyatt, he's in the NFL now. So Tennessee has a whole lot receiver. Their quarterback has been very inconsistent. Meanwhile, Alabama, Jalen Monroe has been looking a lot better. They still have good wide receivers. For example, Trey Burton. They still have good defenders with Chris Braswell, Kool-Aid McKinstry, and Dallas Turner. Alabama has everything they need to be successful. The problem? Their schedule is really hard. So they still have to play LSU, who is a very tough opponent. Plus, if they make the conference championship, they're still going to have to play Georgia. So I think Alabama, if they want any hope to make the college football playoffs, they must win this game. Alabama has 9-point favorites. They're going to win this game by 7. It's going to be very close. Let's go to our next game, which is between a game that shouldn't be close, but I included it because it's a rivalry game. Michigan versus Michigan State. I mean, I give Michigan State a chance. It's in their home stadium, which helps them. Meanwhile, Michigan's still 2nd ranked. Their schedule hasn't been the toughest, but they still have incredible talent. I mean, they could pass the ball in a great way. They could run the ball incredibly with their 2 backs. I mean, they got a power back in Donovan Edwards and an incredible elusive back in Blake Corum. And their quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, he's been playing incredible. He's been what Michigan has been looking for, to get over the playoff stamp, to get to the national championship. And he has good weapons. He has Roman Wilson, who's been his number 1 guy all year. Although Michigan's defense, they've been good, but they haven't had any superstar names pop out. But then again, Michigan State hasn't had any names, offense or defense, pop out. I mean, their best player was a punter who went to the NFL last year. Michigan is the much better team in this game. They're 24-point favorites, and these rivalry games are always close in the first half. Every rivalry game is close in the first half. but then the better team will show off in the second half. That's who Michigan is. They're the better team in this game. 24-point favorites. I think they're going to win this game by 21. All right, let's go to our next game. These two teams played twice last year. One at Utah. The other was the conference championship against USC. This year the game's at USC. And Utah, I still don't believe that their starting quarterback will be back yet. I don't know what's going on with Cam Rising. The injury was supposed to be a 2 to 4 week. It's been all year so far. And although I will say their backup quarterback has been playing incredible. Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson, they do a little 2-quarterback set. Meanwhile, Utah's been having a great year so far. I mean, they did slip up to, I believe, Oregon State. Yes, Oregon State. And USC slipped up to Notre Dame, which is a tough team. I don't know what to think of USC anymore. They only beat Arizona State by a little margin. They only beat Arizona by 2 in triple overtime. They got their butts whooped by Notre Dame. And Caleb Williams is looking like Nathan Peterman. Like, this is not the USC we're used to seeing. Their wide receivers have been good. They have incredible starters. They have, Dorian Singer, Mario Williams, Brendan Rice. I mean, they have all the weapons they need, but they can't do anything because they're USC. They're a team that loses to Tulane. They're a team that throws 3 picks a game when your quarterback's overhyped, and he thinks he's so good that he could pick the teams he wants to play for. Now, I do think Caleb Williams is an incredible quarterback still, but if he throws that many interceptions again, I mean, we know what Xavier Watts is. He's incredible, but Utah has their own Xavier Watts and Cole Bishop. Caleb Williams has to be better with the football. They needed you better on the run game with Marshawn Lloyd. And just because I don't like USC, I'm picking Utah in this game as 7-point underdogs to win by a field goal. Our next game, 2 disappointing ACC teams. The Miami Hurricanes, who are the worst decision makers in college football, against the Clemson Tigers, who are good but overrated. Clemson probably can't make the playoffs anymore. They slipped up to Duke and Florida State, but that doesn't make their resume bad. I mean, they lost to 2 ranked teams. But Miami, here's the thing about Miami. If you look at them on paper, they're not even that bad. I mean, we see that they beat Texas A&M. We see that, although we do also see that they lost to Georgia Tech. So they're 4-2 right now. They probably have a 0% chance to make the playoffs as well. And their other loss was to North Carolina last week. I mean, they've lost to a good team and a mid team. So they can't expect to go into this game as favorites. Which, speaking of that, they aren't. They're 3-point underdogs. Tyler Van Dyke, their quarterback, has not been playing consistently. I think in this game they're going to have to rely on the run game a lot against Clemson. They're going to need to slow the game down with Henry Parrish Jr. He's been having a very solid year this year, and they can't get many things going in the passing game. And if they do, they have to be looking for Xavier Restrepo. He's been their number 1 target all year. Meanwhile, Clemson's quarterback Cade Klubnik has been very inconsistent as well. It's kind of a battle of inconsistent quarterbacks. I think this is going to be a run game. Who will run the ball better? I believe it will be Clemson. They have Will Shipley. And they have a very, very solid backup running back. You know, if Will Shipley needs a break, in Farrell Maffa, he's been doing a great job filling in when he needs a break. So their run game has been incredible. Or, as some might say, good enough to win the smaller games. They haven't been able to execute against bigger teams. Although I wouldn't consider Miami a big team. They're basically the NFL version of the Vikings, overhyped, but they still have talent. Okay, Clemson's going to win this game by 7 as 3-point favorites. Let's go to our next game between 2 very underwhelming SEC teams in Arkansas Razorbacks at home against the Mississippi State Bulldogs. I think both these teams have good quarterbacks, but they haven't been able to show it. I mean, we know that KJ Jefferson's incredible. He had that one play against Alabama where he took like 500 pounds on his back and made a play out of it. And for me, it shows on the schedule, or on the win column that they only have 2 wins. And yes, those 2 wins were against bad teams. They were against Western Carolina and Kent State. But if you look at their losses, most of them they were winning in the fourth quarter. They only lost to 12th ranked LSU by 3. They lost to BYU by 7. Texas A&M, that game wasn't that close. They lost to Ole Miss by 7 and Alabama by 3. So Arkansas can compete in the big games. And since this isn't as big of a game against Mississippi State, especially because they're at home, they're the better team. Mississippi State has a better record, not the better team. They have a good quarterback, not the better quarterback. I think in every way possible, Arkansas is a better team in this way. I believe they're going to show it. Arkansas, 6-point favorites, win this game by 14. Turn their season around and make a bowl game. Let's go to our next game between 2 very underrated Big 12 teams, between the Oklahoma State Cowboys against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Let's see. West Virginia, they've been a very exciting team this year. I mean, Hudson Clement, their number 1 receiver, has been having a great year. And as of now, they're currently sitting at 4-2. And in the Big 12, they're 2-1. Oklahoma State's also 2-1 in the Big 12 and 4-2. So this is a very even game. These teams are very similar. Both have solid defenses. Both have good offenses. But whose quarterback will take care of the ball better? Which one's been more consistent? On one side, you have the Oklahoma State quarterback, who's been playing very solid this year, Gunnar Gundy, and he just led his team to a win over Kansas, who was originally ranked. And on the other side, for West Virginia, he's been doing a very solid year. He's been throwing to Hudson Clement a lot. West Virginia quarterback, his name is Sean Boyle and Garrett Green. They've been starting both. They've both been having good years. Garrett Green's been their number 1 guy, though. I think Pat McAfee has been proud of him. Pat McAfee's been proud of his whole team. He's going to be proud of them today. 3.5-point favorites, 14-point win for the Mountaineers. Next game, rematch of the Big 12 championship last year, TCU at Kansas State. Now, before I get too much ahead of myself, these teams are much different than they were last year. Kansas State lost their 3 best players, Deuce Vaughn, Malik Knowles, Julius Brents. TCU lost 12 of their best players, probably. 2 of their starting offensive linemen, Steve Avili, Allen Alley, their starting quarterback, Max Duggan, although Chandler Morris has been having a great year so far. Both of their wide receivers, Darius Davis and Quinn Johnson. Both their running backs, Kendry Miller and DeMarcado. They still have Jared Wiley. Their defense, they also lost D. Winters, Bud Clark, and Travius Thomas Hodges. This team is so much different than they were last year. TCU last year was a NFL team. This year, they're a MAC team, a Mid-American team. But their record doesn't show that, however. Kansas State has been a very quiet team this year. Will Howard has been having a good year. I don't know. This is a very intense game since it's a rematch of the conference championship. And both these teams have similar records. Kansas State's 4-2, TCU's 4-3. Who will win this game? I believe it will be the home crowd of Kansas State that leads them to a win over TCU. Kansas State 6.5-point favorites. Win this game by 4. All right, let's go to our last game between 2 very even Big Ten teams, Big Ten West teams, Illinois, Wisconsin. This game's in Illinois, so that's why I decided to pick this game. Both these teams are good, but questionable. I mean, Illinois, they've lost so many of their players last year. They've lost their quarterback, Tommy DeVito, their number 1 running back, Chase Brown, and their 3 best DBs in Devin Witherspoon, Jartavius Martin, Sidney Brown. I mean, I'm impressed that they're 3-4 with the losses from their team that played last year. Meanwhile, Wisconsin, they got a transfer quarterback. They got rid of Graham Mertz, received Tanner Mordecai. I think that's a fair trade. It's the same player, pretty much. Their running game's going to get them to the win. Braylon Allen, he's been, I believe, the center point of the Wisconsin offense. Him and Tanner Mordecai have been a very, very solid duo this year. But I think I would advise them to run outside. My reason I advise them to run outside is because on the other side of the ball, you got Jerzad Newton, the defensive tackle, who's been tearing it up for the Illinois Fighting Illini. If they can get past him and their offensive line can hold up, remember, they don't have Joe Tippmann anymore, Wisconsin will win this game. They're the better team, but they're going to have to show it. They're going to have to play like it. Wisconsin in this game is a 2.5-point favorite. I'm going to pick the upset. I'm going to Illinois by 7. And this game's going to go down to the wire. I think Illinois is going to get a defensive stop on a 4th down. All right, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to stay tuned for week 9, and make sure to stay tuned for future videos where I will be filming from the University of Tennessee, University of LSU, and University of Mississippi State. Please, also, who do you guys think is going to win the college football playoffs? Or start by making it. Comment down below what 4 teams are going to make the playoffs, and which team will be 5th. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.